Hi, welcome to Real Talk TV Zimbabwe. I'm James JJ Majatame, your host for the day, streaming live from our Harare studios. Today, I'm going to host one of the young charismatic youth leader, a self-developed business strategist, a holder of BTech honors degree in electronic engineering from Harare Institute of Technology. He also sits on the board of Zimbabwe Youth Council, and he is the founder and CEO of Develop Inc. Help me to welcome none other than Glen Dhliwayo. Welcome, Glen.
Thank you, JJ.
How are you, man?
I'm doing very well, and you?
I'm fine. You look good today.
Thank you so much.
I've got a few questions to ask you.
Yes.
What constitutes a leader?
I think a leader is just the ordinary people that we meet on the street, far from what people would want to conceptualize as people that sit in offices that have these high-backed chairs and these magnificent armrests. But a leader is just a person who takes responsibility and a person who has influence and then weighs that influence in the due processes to affect them.
So, would we say that leaders are born or leaders are made? There's that statement we see. Some leaders are born, some leaders are made. How can you actually explain that?
That has been a controversial question for years, but what I believe is whether you are born a leader or you are made a leader, the important thing is, are you functioning in your leadership role? Because leadership is less about titles but more about action. What are you doing as a leader then justifies whether you are a leader. So with regard to the question whether you are born a leader, indeed there's some people that are endowed with leadership qualities from birth, people that can speak inspiringly to other people that can move people when they speak, and these are qualities that they are born with from birth. But others then develop these in themselves, they nurture these characters and then they become leaders because they are determined to be leaders and so they develop themselves. So a person might go in a studio and work time and put in hours to say, you know what, I want to develop my speaking abilities. You know what, I want to develop my ability to inspire other people.
That is a made leader.
That is a made leader. You might not have been born eloquent, but you nurture yourself to be able to communicate constructively and in a transformational way to other people.
So we can safely accept those who go to leadership schools as our leaders than those who are actually, we believe they are just born leaders.
I think the difference really is to be made by the actions of a leader. You know, the Bible says, by their fruits you shall know them. So even those that have gone to school, they might be found wanting because maybe you are banking more on the legitimacy of your qualification than the actual work that you are doing. Because the work that you do and the influence you have either on people or on the due process is what validates you as a leader. So whether you have gone to school, there are people that have not gone to school. A classic example in Zimbabwe is one honorable member of parliament who is moving mountains in his constituency, but is one of the most unlearned. And he prides himself in that because his actions translate into the actions that are expected of a leader.
Is it the one that I'm thinking is Chinotimba?
Yes, none other than honorable.
He's doing wonders, I can tell you, man. He's doing great work.
And the work he's doing profounds some of even the most learned people, some of the people that have PhDs and masters would look at him and wonder. And I think one of the major driving forces of a leader is the willingness. Do you have the political will, for example, to be in political office? Do you have the impetus within you to become the person that you want to become? You know, so if there is the will, it will match the office that you are in. It will match the requirements that are expected of you.
Okay. Now, when I was actually going through your book, I have seen that you are much nurtured in leadership positions. And even when I was actually reading your CV, it was too long. I don't have that CV personally, but I think you are doing great ones. Now, can you tell us what actually made you to come to such prominence in your leadership at such a young age? I think you're just 26, am I correct?
25.
25. Oh my God, 25 years. And you have already written a book. I haven't written any, but of course I'm 29 years old. Now tell me, how did you rise to that prominence? And how do you sustain this trust that you gain from other peers?
I think for now, prominence would be a very generous compliment, which I will take for now. But I think my humble opinion of the things that I've done so far, I think it has been more of a case of determination. Having that determination to say, you know what, I'll not just live an ordinary life that just passes by and people will not remember me. But what I have determined and sought out to do is to say my life should have a meaning beyond myself. You know, when beyond my family, beyond my friends, someone out there should be able to look at my life, even when I'm gone, you know, to then say, this was a life well lived.
So it's more like building your legacy.
Building a legacy. You know, there's also the thing of saying, what do you feed your mind on? And for me, one of the things that defines my life so much is that I'm an avid reader. I'm a keen reader. I read so much. And one of the books that I've gone through, which is The 7 Habits of Effective Leaders or Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey, says you should begin with the end in mind. And for me, I always look at that end and say, if I'm living my life this way, how is the end going to become? How is the end going to be? So you have the picture of the ending that you want to see, and that informs what you do today. So the question I would even want to pose to those that are watching today is to say, yes, you want to be a leader, but what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind, and how do you want to be remembered after you're gone?
Oh, that's brilliant. So now, tell us, who inspired you, or who is your inspiration as a leader? Who do you want to follow, probably? You know, we always have our people that we want to be like.
You know, that is a very tricky question. I think there are a lot of people that have had influences on my life. And for starters, the first one would be my mother, my late mother. And most of the things I do is in memory of her life and the impact she had on me. I always say if I had not passed through her hands, I would not be the person that I am today. And there are ordinary people that I meet on a day-to-day basis, and people that speak to my life, people that open opportunities and doors for me. These are people that I do not want to let down. I'll tell you that one of the guys that really inspired me in life is a guy I met in school, in university. His name is Ali Jamil. He just came up to me and he said, you know what, you're studying engineering, but you're just not bound to be an engineer. That is not the end all of it, or the end all of your life. And I look back and wonder what he had seen in me then to make such a bold statement to someone you're not even friends with.
That was really,
you know,
kind of strange.
So every time I think of such people, and there are people that have gone out of their way to open opportunities for me, to give me exposure, to give me speaking appearances, and to even open doors for me. People that have even probably sponsored my going to school indirectly or directly. Those are people that I really owe much. But then when we talk about the prominent leaders in the world that have made an impact in my life, we talk of the likes of Steve Biko, the likes of Malcolm X, the likes of Obama, the likes of our President Robert Mugabe, the likes of Nelson Mandela. It's a cross-cutting and diverse sector of people. We even talk about business leaders like the name of Jack Welch.
Glenn, you've just mentioned all these leaders are quite political leaders, not even one in the corporate leaders. You have not mentioned one, did you?
I just mentioned Jack Welch right now.
Oh, okay.
If you go through my book, you also realize that I make a lot of mention to people like Strive Masiwa. There are people like Baba Guti. He's my spiritual father that I look up to. You know, and the other thing about me that I most maybe would want to say treasure is that I'm not a compartmentalized person.
Okay.
You find that my influence is probably well distributed in everything that I do. That is why you find that I have a cross-cutting range of influence.
Okay. So now let's come back home a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the future of young Zimbabweans? Are we really having enough leaders in our country from the youth that we are having?
I think the thing that is important to highlight first of all is to say the future of young people in this country is in their hands and no one else hands. You know, it is up to us to begin to take charge and to seek office and seek participation in various spheres. Whatever is your sphere of influence, it is up to us to then say, you know what, I'm not going to sit in the periphery, but I'm going to be in the thick of things and prove myself as a person, prove myself as a player, prove myself as a meaningful resource person in whatever is going to be done. So the future of this country is very much pinned upon the young people of today, because we also need to understand that there's that need to make sure that there's a smooth and effective transition from the older generation to our generation, and that cannot happen if you're going to leave it too late. We need to make sure that we have a systematic way of doing that, and the young people themselves are very willing to take part in processes. It might be at church. You should not wait to make sure that this whole generation just becomes part of the congregation and we are not part of the decision making. We are not part of the people that are driving the agenda of the day. I think that the future of this country is going to be safe only if the young people become part of the critical mass that drives the agenda of the day in any space.
But the million-dollar question is, are they participating as we speak?
They are, but in less coordinated ways and not in the greater magnitude that we want them to get into. And you have to understand that there are a lot of factors that cause this. These factors might be psychological. For example, at times our culture we've been socialized in such a way that I might not be deemed upon gracefully if I'm going to speak and raise my voice, if I'm going to make my voice heard in a space where there are older people there, because naturally I'm expected to say, this is my elder and they speak, and if I object, I shouldn't do that. And this is a social, cultural issue that we also have to deal with. And there are also issues of systematic disenfranchisement of young people, where those that have power already make sure that they exclude young people, and we know the reasons why. It's because they also want to benefit from the status quo, and they also want to continue and perpetuate their benefits that they're getting from the system, and so you do not want any new entries into that system.
So if we are having that kind of structure in our leadership, is it not going to create some problems now on the takeover kind of, this generation is gone and the next generation is coming in, while we don't have well-trained young leaders and we only have the older going? How are we going to bridge the gap?
I think the first challenge is when you look at life and then you see it as discrete eras of life. You know, where you say the 1990s to the 2000 generation, the 2000 to the 2030 generation. It's a problem because life is continuous by nature. So we shouldn't view it discretely and then say there was this era. And the reason why this is happening right now is because those that are the custodians of power, the custodians of influence, the custodians of income right now are housing that influence and not really necessarily transferring it smoothly to the next generation. And so it is not, we're not talking about an issue of viewing it as a future problem. It is a problem of the day, you know, because these young people that are not filling in spaces, where are they? Where is their energy channeled? This is why we find that we might end up with surges in crime, surges in vices like prostitution, surges in vices like drug abuse, because the young person of today has not been fully utilized, and the young person of today has not harnessed their energy and creative ideas in solving the problems of the day-to-day. So when you want to then hand over the baton stick to them, probably you're not handing over the baton stick to a generation that needs repair and rehabilitation more than a generation which is capable to take on the baton stick.
So if you think with the youth that we are having in our country, and if they are given the opportunity to do things, is anyone out there able to do the work that they are given?
Sorry, can I take that question?
Okay. My question is, you are saying they are capable, right? Mm-hmm. But my question is, if we give them the opportunity, do you think they will really take it? Because seemingly everyone in our country, most of our young people are going out. You know, there's a lot of exodus. People are leaving the country, especially the youth. Mm-hmm. And then those who are left are only those few who, you know what I mean, who doesn't really have means, and those who are well connected. Mm-hmm. But we're saying if we give them opportunity to do what they should do, are they going to do it to benefit the entire nation, or is just for their own benefit?
In many spaces, I hear that statement a lot, where the elderly generation, and even some young people echo that sentiment that the young people of today are not ready to take positions. Of course, there are issues to do with capacity building, where we are saying you should be able to match, your capacity should match the work that you intend to do. But one thing that I should highlight and hasten upon is to say, you know, I find it very insulting and actually patronizing for people to say young people are not ready. Were they ready? The generation of today, were they ready when they took up the positions that they are in today? You know, they got the opportunity because they wanted to utilize that opportunity, and they were given the opportunity. So I think at times it is necessary for them to also allow our generation to make mistakes while we are participating. It is going to always become a question. It is always going to be a question of time and saying, if I'm 25 today, how do you expect me to have the experience that matches someone who's 50? But if you then sideline me because I don't have that experience, where am I going to earn that experience from? So it continues to become a patronizing question or patronizing issue for me, because you are then saying you are rendering me perpetually incapable to do things. Trust us and give us the chance to do things. And I think the other thing is the onus is on us as young people to assert ourselves and say, you know what, we are able to do these things. If we're going to make mistakes, let us make mistakes on the job, but we should not be sidelined.
I still remember that you once on this other constituency, you wanted to be a member of parliament. Mm-hmm. Would you briefly tell us what happened?
I think for me that the election of 2013 was just an issue of me introducing my entry into mainstream politics, because for some people that do not understand, they might find it having been an issue of gaps and trying to understand exactly what was the driving force behind me. But for a person who knows me, I've been a young person who's been in student leadership. I was SRC president at my university at some time, and I think it was necessary for me at that juncture to then say, I'm not perpetually sort of compartmentalizing myself to student politics. You know, you get to a stage, and at every stage you need to understand that you move. You have to move to the next stage. And that for me was preparation for me more than anything else. It was an announcement more than anything else. It was trying to garner experience, first-hand experience more than anything else. And it is important for me to highlight that we should not have people putting barriers for us, or the vanguard of today saying we shouldn't try and attempt these things, because if we do not do that, I'll tell you the experience I garnered in that period is priceless. You cannot learn that in books.
So you actually don't mind you losing the elections?
For me, I didn't lose. It was a victory for me in itself, because it was a personal victory, because I want to ask you this question, and even for the viewer, how many young people have taken that initiative to run as an independent candidate and speak unequivocally about the issues of young people? For me, it was a victory because, one, I managed to pull a decent campaign. Two, because I managed to coordinate an election campaign from the nomination process, securing enough for something that some people have failed to do, and even announcing myself as a candidate that people would even have talked about. And the important thing for me is I learned the lessons I was supposed to learn, and I made the announcements I was supposed to announce.
That's brilliant. You know, when you told me, I was actually in Cape Town when we were talking together, and you were even campaigning on Facebook. And then I had to ask you few questions, and then you were like, yeah, I'm 24. I think I'm 24. Yeah, I'm 24, and I was like, oh, this young boy, go to hell. What is it that you want to do? Anyway, Glen, what's your advice to the young Zimbabweans that we have?
I think the onus is on us. It is upon us and incumbent upon us to say, if we channel the impetus within us to want to do things, because I want to say this and say this confidently. Within every young person, there is that desire to do things. Within every young person, there is that impetus to want to do things, that desire to want to go and change things and transform things. And if we're going to trust that desire enough and act upon it and action it, we're going to do wonders. I think we also have to sort of ignore the dismissive attitudes of people ahead of us. For example, even that dismissive attitude to say, what is this young man wanting to do in these elections? These are not child's play. And once we are able to look aside that dismissive attitude that society has upon young people generally, you'll find that we're going to change the culture that is there. Because the culture which is prevailing today is you have to be grey-haired to be accepted as a leader. But that is not true. As young people, we need to begin to change that mindset. It is also our generational mandate to do that, because if we do not change that generational mindset, that prevailing mindset we have now, we're going to simply pass over the same problems to the next generations. So it is also one of our generational mandate to make sure that we renew the mindset, change people's mindsets to say it is not an issue of age, but it is an issue of what you have to offer. It is an issue of your willingness, because there are 60-year-old people that are in office but are not willing to do what is required of them. And finally, I want to make this broad call to say the generation before us was the liberation era generation. They are defined by that cause which they were pushing. What is the cause that is defining our generation? I think once we are able to pinpoint our mandate as a generation and say this is our cause, this is our defining cause in this moment and era, then we run with it. We will find a generation, we will find a mandate as a generation. As it is right now, we are referred to as the lost generation. Why? Because we have some young person busy pushing the Jay-Z agenda, we have another young person busy pushing their own needs, and another person pushing in that corner, so we become lost like that. But if we're able to pull a critical mass as young people and say, as young people, our agenda is an economic transformation agenda, for example, and we want to change the way the economy is run, we want to change the way some things are done, we want to weed out corruption, and we want to do A, B, C, D. That becomes the beginning of the defining of our generation.
That's right.
And it is when we do that the future generations will read about us. Because when we read about the past generations, we read about the Mandelas, we read about the Mugabes, the Ngomos, we read about the Kwame Nkrumahs, because this is what defined them. They were faced with the colonial era, and they wanted to liberate Africa, and this is what defined them. What is the thing that is impressing upon us the most now, and what are we going to do about it as young people to define our existence at this moment in time?
So we should not just sit and relax and see them doing whatever they're doing.
We shouldn't. You know, one of the things that, one of the scriptures that inspires me the most from the Bible is when Mordecai talks to Esther and says, who knows, maybe you were born for such a time as this. It inspires me. I think I was born for such a time as this, and a lot of other young people. You know, existence is not a mistake.
Okay.
Existence is always by design, but it is up to us to then identify and pinpoint and say, this is the reason for our existence. And once we know, we do that. You know.
Brilliant. This is Glen talking. You can hear from us that, oh my God, here is an eloquent and powerful leader of tomorrow. Please don't go away. When we come back, it is becoming too personal. Welcome back. Glen, I have with me here 2 envelopes. Each of these 2 envelopes contains a set of 5 questions. So you are going to choose. I don't know which one you are going to choose, but I've got 2 of them. You choose one, and I will ask those personal questions, and you will be obliged to ask. You will love it just to look at it. Then choose. Which one are you taking? A, B?
I will take B.
Okay. B, here we go. Open it yourself. And you give questions to me, please. Give the questions. Yeah. All right. What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is that you've only got temporary failure. It's a false. You've only got temporary success.
Number 3. Who among our ministers is the most dressed and flamboyant minister? And who is the worst?
I think that is an obvious question. It goes to Walter Mzembe. I really admire the guy.
He's tasted, man. He's so flamboyant. I mean,
no wonder why
he dresses the best.
The worst. You don't want me to be followed by lawsuits.
Oh, please. it's just the worst.
I'm still very young to start creating.
No, it's not like
creating rivals and enemies.
No, it's not really. These are our. It's not really bad to go say, hey, leader, you're my leader, but the way you dress really. Well, you cannot answer that if you feel you are not comfortable.
I think I'll answer the first part. The most flamboyantly dressed and the one who's best displayed out there is Walter Mzembe. Indeed, he matches the brand that he is, and he matches the portfolio he's supposed to be in.
So the trophy goes to Walter Mzembe.
Yeah.
Great. Number 4. If you were a character in Generations, I hope you do watch Generations, do you?
Used to.
Used to. Oh well. If you were a character in Generations, which one would you love to be?
Okay. I know the person I want to be, but unfortunately I've lost track of Generations.
Give you help. Is it Jason?
Not Jason. There is oh my word.
Who is that?
Siso.
Siso. Okay. The
that-
guy with some earrings?
The bald one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is the person I would be. For reasons that he is in control of the situation most of the time. At times I do not really agree with his unethical ways to sort of remain in control. But I like the fact that he's never phased. Even when he's in trouble, you know, he still is the man in charge of the situation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, the last question.
Mhm.
If you were given a chance to be in, will you enter Big Brother Africa?
You know, that is a very revealing question. A lot of my friends say that if I would go to Big Brother Africa, I would win. You know, there's a person that glams, there's a glam that people see in the public.
Okay.
And this is the guy who's well manicured, who's well groomed, and this is a guy who's very particular about what he's saying. But if you ask my friends, I can be a whole lot of entertainment. You know?
Okay.
So a lot of my friends have said, if you go to Big Brother, you would win, because when you're around me, you're always laughing. When you're around me, your mind is always working, because I talk a lot, I express myself a lot in the spaces that I feel comfortable about. Because of the nature of the work I do and the brand I've become, I would not attempt to go to Big Brother, but I think I would bring the prize home if I can.
I also think you also bring the prize home. But anyway, this was Glen Dhliwayo that we were talking to. You've heard a lot from him, and so much he has to deliver and to give to our nation. Only the young people need to take chances. Only the young people can change their situation. You don't have to wait for anyone to bring any change in your life. It is up to you. Glen just said it. I'm saying it as well. So next time when you caught Glen and JJ say the same thing. Glen, thank you very much, man, for coming and visiting us at Real Talk TV.
Thank you for having me.
We are looking forward to invite you in the second segment of our session. We hope by then you will be a full member of parliament.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Don't go away. When we come back, we will introduce to you a hero of the month. Welcome. The Hero of the Month title goes to Alfred Justice Mamedzenge. He has just dropped his human rights book, which was launched 2 weeks ago. And he himself will explain to us what does the book entail and what are the benefits that we are going to get as the population or the citizens of Zimbabwe. Let us hear him out.
I think this is the book. This book is very important, I think, for different group of people. It's important for people that adjudicate, that is the judges, the magistrates. It's useful for students that are studying law. It's useful for lawyers that do litigation. Useful for civil society that intends to do civic education on human rights, particularly the application enforcement of the Declaration of Rights. It's also useful for the ordinary citizens that want to know more about their constitution. So I think this book takes care of everyone. It is also written in simple, clear language. We try to avoid the usually deep, very difficult technical jargon that is used by lawyers to describe legal concepts. But of course, you know, the simple, clear language that we used is to the extent that it should retain the same message and communicate the same message that we want to communicate. On the importance of human rights are basically what human beings are entitled to by virtue of being human beings. One does not need to do anything for them to be entitled to human rights. Because you are a human being, you have right to freedom of assembly, you have right to freedom of expression, freedom of privacy, you have right not to be arbitrarily evicted, you have the right not to have your home destroyed without the court authorizing that. That gets me to the third question that you asked about demolitions that are taking place in and around the city of Harare. I think those demolitions are a clear violation of our constitution. They are in contempt of the right that is entitled to every citizen and every person in Zimbabwe. And that right is that they should not have their homes or their shelter demolished, or they should not be evicted from their homes arbitrarily. What that means is that no one can evict you from your home.